Edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley and Stevie Nicol on the day that Manchester City retained their Premier League title. In the end, it was just one solitary point that separated them and Liverpool, and there was...
And put their foot down, which they did, with some real quality in the end. But it was a little scare, which I suppose they would have prepared for, but I don't think there's any big surprises up at Liverpool that this happened.
Steve makes a good point, wasn't it? Just the timing of the Aguero goal was perfect in that you felt the longer that would have gone on, the nerves would have built. But the fact there was such an instant impact that it kind of extinguished them really quickly. Yeah,
I agree. But, they would have got more nervous. But you only have to look at the game a few days earlier against Leicester to see how calm and composed they were. Or, OK, it was a screamer of a goal from Company. But this is a side that, you can just go all the way to injury time and beyond. And look, they're the best side in this division.
Yeah.
And Liverpool, and I've said for weeks and weeks, I think that this is the best squad in world football, for clubs. And the fact that Liverpool, who have an excellent squad, but not as deep as City's, the fact that they've hung on to the coattails of this team and pushed them. In fact, we're leading, and people are out there saying, well, they were 7 points ahead, they dropped it. City's form in the run-in was unbelievable.
Yeah, there are 14 straight wins.
I mean, Liverpool's form in the run-in was pretty good.
Yeah. 9 straight wins. It's madness, isn't it?
Yeah, there's two things for me that separate. Even though it's a point, if you look at the table, the two things that separate these two for me is how impressive City were under pressure. Last year, they won it in a canter. No pressure whatsoever. This time round, not only were they defending it, but they've got a team who was pushing and pushing and pushing. And Liverpool forced them to go 14 games. 14 games? Yeah. Liverpool forced them, and they showed enough bottle to do that. The other thing that separates them is Man City have more goal scorers. I think you look at Liverpool's got 7 draws. And I think that's because they're relying on 3 players basically to score the goals. Manchester City have got multiple players on the field and off the field that will score goals. I mean, today's a great example. Mahrez. Nobody expected Mahrez to play. Where did that come from? And guess what?
Yeah.
He scores goals as well. So those are the two main differences between the sides, not only just a point in the table.
A lot of stats, of course, being thrown out since the result, but one that certainly stands out is the fact that Liverpool are the only team in the history of the Premier League that have got over 19 points, not won the title. Remember, Liverpool only lost 1 game the whole season. Pep Guardiola keen to talk about Liverpool in the press conference afterwards.
Well, I think honestly, last season we increased the standards from this competition. This is a Premier League. So before with 85, 87, maybe 90, we'd be champion, and we did 100. So I think all the teams realize that, but just Liverpool can handle that. But at the same time, I have to say thank you to Liverpool because they help us ourselves to be better than the last season. So we control each other, so close. So I think it's not my feeling. I think all the staff in the locker room, that is the toughest league or Premier League we have won from the beginning. I won in Spain, I won in Germany, but that is the toughest one, especially for the rival that we have to face all season.
Tough, of course, because you had to win every game. Like, as you were saying, Liverpool put the pressure on. Draws in the end were like defeats, with hindsight.
Yeah, and it was just a few too many after Christmas for Liverpool, and they only lost, I think. They lost that game to Man City.
And that was it?
That was it. I think they lost at against Chelsea earlier in the season, if memory serves me right.
No, Liverpool only lost 1 game.
Oh, did they? That was in the Cup?
Yeah. Oh. Drew against Chelsea.
I mean, it's quite scary, but it's not... I don't think it'll be any added, importance for Klopp when people say, well, that would have won the league most other seasons, because at the end of the day, it is what you're up against. Now... People will say, well, and I've seen it, but I'm not using the word bottlers, because people, like idiots, will throw that around. But people have said, are they failures? And I would say, no. Failure you could use in a couple of ways. They failed to do what the objective was and winning the league, because that's clearly what the objective was, and boy, they were close. But they're not failures, if you can see that sense. They just met a team, and it's timing. It's just timing. He's come into Liverpool, and Guardiola has raised the standards of what winning the Premier League is now, and he's having to take a club that hasn't won it for 29 years to try and meet those standards. I mean, it's incredibly tough.
How would you be feeling in that Liverpool locker room?
No question, they should be feeling disappointed. Yes, they've got a Champions League final, but at the end of the day, it's all great when everybody says you did really well. But see that medal? Yeah. You don't have it in your hand. So, in a few years' time, it's going to be a distant memory. There's going to be nothing to show for it. Unless Klopp and the Liverpool board take this group of players and add to it. You know, City...
Which I think they will, by the way.
Well, they need to, because in order for them to take that next step, they have to get a bigger and better squad.
Right.
Because that's the only difference between City and Liverpool. I think the starting 11s are really, really close. City probably just edge it. But when you think about what comes off the bench, Liverpool are miles away from what City has.
But it's only 1 point in the end.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't have the medal.
No, I understand that, but you're saying
League.
they're miles away. They're not that far. It's only 1 point.
I'm talking about who comes off the bench.
Right.
They're miles away. Liverpool have got Origi and Sturridge coming off the bench, and Shaqiri. City have got Mahrez, Player of the Year, Jesus, the German boy, Sane. I mean, that's a whole world. So when you're talking about 38-game season, you need those players at times just to freshen things up and give somebody a break. And, as I said before, add goals.
David Silva's came off the bench quite a few times or been on the bench for Man City this year. Bernardo Silva's, Guardiola mentioned pre this game that he would have been his Player of the Year, not Raheem Sterling or Aguero or anybody else. That's how impressive Bernardo Silva has been. But, I mean, a word on City, when Guardiola first came in, one of the things we talked about was Aguero. Because the rumours were, and there were rumours, and I think some of them were substantiated, was that he liked a lifestyle that's maybe him and I know a little bit about.
Yep.
You know, enjoying himself. Like the old days, and in this day and age, it's kind of changed. You can't, and we wondered whether he was going to be surplus to requirements. There was a few headlines about it.
Yeah.
He was going to be leaving it, and he has been, amongst lots of people, he seems to have, one, changed his attitude, and two, the manager seems to have completely done a 360 on it. Because we all thought Jesus was going to come in and Aguero would be coming off the bench. Well, it's been absolutely the opposite.
Do you know, Guardiola's changed the old line from Fergie that defence wins titles and goals win games. Guardiola, last year and this year, has ripped that up and thrown it away. Because Liverpool have got a fantastic defence and they haven't won the title because they haven't had enough goals round the team. So that one can be binned. It
was interesting when Pep Guardiola came to the Premier League. There were some who were going, hey, right, now you're stepping up to the real big time. Fine, did it with Barca, but you had Messi. Bayern, that's a one-club league. Came to the Premier League, and in the first season, you could feel the Sharks kind of circling around him. There was a big talk, wasn't there, in the press conference he gave when he goes, I'm not going to change. You know, this is who I am.
I think it was after the Leicester game.
It was the tackle,
wasn't it? When they got beat.
Yes.
Heavily.
He did change, though. He did change. You know, I think he thought he could come to the Premier League and play football with great players and score goals and just win games. Because he clearly in the first season, I mean, we sat all year talking about it. He has to do something defensively. He has to do something. So what does he do? He ends up going and spends 50 million on Kyle Walker. He gets Laporte in. He spends another 50 on Mendy, who hasn't quite worked out, but they've shaped up defensively. So he absolutely has changed. He realised that they couldn't just go and score more goals than the opposition to win. They had to defend. And if you look at the last half a dozen games, they've been fantastic, including Vincent Kompany, who I think is a huge part of them winning this, because he's come back in the second part of the season, and along with Laporte, they have solidified that back line big time.
But it's not just the defensive aspect of it. It was what he wanted to do with the City team, and you know, particularly in the modern game. If you look at some of the stats, I bet you fullbacks are crossing the ball now as much or more than wingers, because wingers are not really wingers anymore. There's the odd one floating around.
Alexander-Arnold's got 15 assists from exactly what you're talking about.
So, and the fullbacks are so important because these guys are ultimately whipping the ball in left, right and centre. And they're getting up and down, and you know, wide men are tucking in sometimes they're not. That's the way the game has gone. But if you look at the fullbacks, and the two fullbacks escape me. He's the Argentinian boy who's at West Ham now, used to be at Man City.
Zabaleta.
And on the left side, I can't remember, but they were clearly at the stage of their career.
It was Gail Clichy, wasn't there?
Clichy, it was, and Sanya was there.
Yep.
Anyway, the full-backs that he had were decent, but they were not able to do what he wanted. And he trying to do what he wanted with them in the way he had at the previous clubs, and it was falling a bit flat. So, obviously they've got the money, so they went out. They got the players he knew that he could do that job, and all of a sudden there was a much better balance to the team. And I think, really and truly, that was a lot of it down to the first season. A bit like Klopp at Liverpool in the first season. Didn't have quite what he wanted to do, to play the way he wanted, so that took a little bit of time to evolve.
How do we assess Liverpool and their season?
And 11 is. So it's up to Liverpool now. If they want to stagnate, then they just keep going with what they've got. But if they want to take another step and get ahead of City, they're going to have to spend again.